Hi everyone, welcome to Learning Impact. In today's lecture, we will discuss this theory of alienation of Karl Marx. So let's start. Okay, first is that what does it mean by alienation? Alienation means estrangement, separation, breakup, and disconnected. Means that an individual has been disconnected or isolated from something. This is a condition which we call alienation. That person has been alienated from something. Now, that something might be any activity, or it might be a product, it might be anything which has a physical existence, or it might be idea. So any kind of thing from which individual has been alienated means they have been isolated. The individual feel that this thing no longer belongs to me. This is the alienation. According to Karl Marx, alienation could be equated with the conditions of life which is characterized by the absence of human freedom. Karl Marx believed that under the capitalist system, the working class has been exploited so much that there is no human emancipation in their life. Their life could be equated with the alienation, means that there is no human freedom. They are performing the activity which is not according to their will, but they have been pushed to perform that. They have been compelled by the capitalist class to perform that because there are few options available to them. First is that either they have to surrender to all the rules which is decided by the capitalist system, or otherwise they would die of starvation because they will not be able to gain the subsistence wages which have them to buy the product. So it means that most of the activity that associated with economic activities under the capitalist system, all these activities are governed by the rules of the capitalist. That's how the Karl Marx believed that they have been alienated in their ordinary life, means that there is no human freedom, no human emancipation, and that's why they are living a life which is equated with the alienation, which is equated with a condition of life where there is no human emancipation. This is what it means by alienation. Now, the theory of alienation, first we will discuss its introduction. Karl Marx gave this theory of introduction in his work which was known as the Economic and Philosophic Manuscript of 1844. This Economic and Philosophic Manuscript was written in Paris. That's why it is also known as the Paris Manuscript. As we have discussed in a detailed biography of the Karl Marx, that he was from the Jewish family, and that's why, to avoid the rife of the anti-Semitism, he moved from one place to another, and he was facing expulsion after expulsion. So and during that time he settled in Paris for some years, and then he moved to England. In Paris he wrote this manuscript which is also known as the Paris Manuscript. And this theory of alienation of Karl Marx is a part of the Karl Marx broader philosophy of Marxism. Karl Marx's political philosophy is known as the Marxism as a whole, and much of his philosophy it revolved around the capitalist system, because he studied the capitalism in deep, and then he draw a critique that how the capitalist system is exploiting the working class and is also helping the capitalist class to derive more and more wealth at the expense of the exploitation of the working class. And the Karl Marx, this theory of alienation derived from the Marx early works. As we have discussed in the Karl Marx detailed biography, that Karl Marx's work has been intellectually divided into two sections, into two parts. First is the Karl Marx early works, and then the Karl Marx mature works. Karl Marx early works were those that were more hypothetical, that were more related to the abstract ideas, that were mostly inspired by the German ideology, including the Hegel philosophy. And he wrote this Marx early works was mostly he wrote after he studied the phenomenology of spirit, which was written by the Hegel, because he was inspired of the of the works of the Hegel. And the Karl Marx mature works were those which are more based on a scientific grounds. So this theory of alienation is derived from the Marx early works. Okay, then what is the Karl Marx theory of alienation? Karl Marx gave his famous theory of alienation in Paris Manuscript, and he defined it as a concept that capitalism has caused alienation of worker from their productive activity, from the product, their fellow worker, and also from their own human potential. This is the statement which he gave, that this alienation refers to a concept that capitalism has caused alienation of what? Alienation of worker, and he discussed four types of alienation, which is mentioned in this definition, that the worker has been alienated, but they have been alienated from their productive activity. That is the first type of alienation he discussed. The second type of alienation is that the worker has been alienated from the product. The third type is that the worker has been alienated from their fellow workers. And the fourth type is that the worker has been alienated from their own human potential. This is what he meant by this theory of alienation. And Karl Marx believed that capitalism has caused human labor turn into a commodity that can be sold and purchased. Means that the human labor, which according to Karl Marx, human labor is a combination of both physical activity and also the mental capabilities. Remember that the Karl Marx labor does not refer to only the physical strength, but also refers to the mental capabilities also. According to Karl Marx, capitalism has caused human labor and turned into a commodity that can be sold and purchased. Means that the human labor is no longer according to will of the worker, but it is something that has been reduced to the market relation, that has been reduced to profit, that is the calculated profit that is generated in the market economy by exchanging the product of the labor. So it means that the human labor is no longer a sensuous human activity. It is no longer a free activity. It is no longer a productive activity that has end in itself. It means that the worker feel no satisfaction while performing their labor. And it is because that they have been alienated from their labor, because it has been turned into a commodity. It has been turned into ultimate ends. And what are the ends? That they have to, that how much money it generates in a market economy. This is all what the capitalists mean with the human labor. Human process of labor, they no longer feel themselves to be anything but animals. According to Karl Marx, the human function, the human labor, which was once the human function, it has been transformed to the animal function on the capitalist system. Now, what's the difference between the human function and the animal function? Human function are those, according to Karl Marx, which has a kind of satisfactory activity which the worker perform, but they do not feel a kind of disconnection from that activity, but they feel that I'm performing this activity, that it will help me to satisfy my own needs. It will help me to fulfill my own needs. But what happened under the capital is that the worker has to perform the labor in order to fulfill the purpose which the capitalist has decided. They have to fulfill the criteria which the capitalist has decided, and in that way it has been reduced to the animal function. And also Karl Marx give a justification that how the human function has been turned into animal function. That the second justification he gave is that there is no room for intellectual capabilities while performing the activity under the capitalist system. Means that, for example, if a person is working in the industry under the capitalist system, even if they have kind of creative ideas, still their ideas will not be applicable until they have their own factory. They cannot propose their own intellectual ideas to be applicable or to present in a factory of which is owned by the capitalist. In order to objectivate their ideas, what they have to do is that they have to compete with other workers in such a way that they themselves become part of the capitalist class. Then they will own the means of production, and in that way they will be able to objectivate their ideas. So in that way the human labor has been reduced to the animal function under the capitalist system. Okay, then there are four components and types of alienation which discussed by the Karl Marx. According to Karl Marx, working class worker has been alienated from their productive activity, also from the product, from their fellow workers, and from their own human potential. These are all the types of alienation which discussed by the Karl Marx in his Economic and Philosophic manuscript, which we will discuss one by one in this lecture. First is the alienation from the productive activity. Okay, alienation from the productive activity. According to Karl Marx, workers have little control over the production process. Now, according to Karl Marx, the productive activity has been reduced to a kind of boring task which is no longer productive. It is activity, but it is no longer productive. Now, what does it mean? Productive means that the individual or the worker who performed that activity, they feel satisfaction in that labor. They feel that I'm performing this activity because it will help me to satisfy my needs. In case of the capitalist, they have been alienated, they have been disconnected from that. The worker no longer feel that the activity is productive, and they have no control over the production process. Means that they have no say in deciding the rules of the productive activity, to decide the hours of the productive activity, to decide any decision regarding the circumstances under which they perform their labor. So that's why in that way they have been alienated from their productive activity under the capitalist system. No enjoyment of work and satisfaction, as it is no longer productive. And here is a concept of wage compulsion, which is actually compelling the worker to perform this activity despite that it is no longer productive. And the wage compulsion concept is that under the capitalist system, the worker has to perform their labor, whatever the condition is, because they have to earn the subsistence wages, and by earning the daily wages they will be able to have potential to buy the product, and in that way they'll be able to meet their own needs. So if they will not, it means that the wage is something compulsory for the working class, and in that way it means that the exploitation by the capitalist class of the working class is something has become compulsory under the capitalist, because in order to earn the subsistence wages they have to work under the condition which is decided by the capitalist, and in that way it will lead to the it will pushing them, it will compel them to work under the exploitative system for years to have enough capability to buy the product for themselves, so they will save themselves from uh, starvation and also death. So in that way we can say that the working class has been alienated from the productive activity, and one of the major underlying reason is that there is a concept of wage compulsion. And also he said that the workers cannot objectivate their ideas, means that there is no room for the intellectual capabilities in the capitalist system. If they are performing their task and if they feel that there is something intellectual ideas they can propose, still they cannot apply that ideas, because they are themselves working class, so they have only to perform the activity which is directed by the capitalist class. And that's why he believed that this productive activity has been turned into a boring task, that is a repetitive and the boring task, in the sequence of the simple, repetitive and boring task which is decided by the capitalist. Okay, so the example of the alienation from the productive activity is the automobile assembly line, in which the working class, they work, they perform their labor, and they feel no extension of their own image in their productive activity. Means that they perform that labor solely to satisfy the needs of the capitalist class. So automobile assembly line workers who tighten a few bolts on an engine, they may have little feeling that how their labor contribute to the production of the entire car. And what they have been compelled to do is that they have to participate in an endless sequence of simple, repetitive and boring tasks which give no opportunity for the worker productivity, and hence there is no enjoyment of work and satisfaction. So in that way, under the capitalism, the workers have little control over the production process, which is often based upon the division of labor, and the worker is only able to reject the work at the expense of their life and that of their family. This is how the working class has been alienated from the productive activity. Then the second type of alienation which Karl Marx discussed is the alienation from the product. Karl Marx believed that the worker has not only been alienated from the productive activity which they perform, but they have also been alienated from the product which they make. Means the product which they make as a result of the activity they perform, they cannot own that product, they cannot claim any share in that product. If they want to own that product, they have to earn the wages on the they have to earn the daily wages, and in order to earn the daily wages they must agree to the terms of the system of the capitalist, which is by nature exploitative, according to Karl Marx. So the design of the product controlled by the capitalist. What does it mean that the working class has no control over the product, or they have been alienated? Means that they have no right to raise a decision or to raise voice regarding the design of the product. They have no voice in deciding the profit, the cost, or maybe the exchange, the market economy. They have no right to raise their voice regarding any of the decision related to the product. And also they cannot own that. Workers cannot own that, but they can only buy it. The only option, if they want to have that product, they have to buy it. Means that they have to they have to spend money, and for that they must have money. So to earn wages, to earn money, what they have to do is to work under the exploitative system. So it, and also the other thing which the Karl Marx highlighted, that they have been alienated from the product of their activity by also advertising commodity fetish, which is he believed that all the false needs which created by the advertisement by the capitalist class, including the cosmetic products, the luxury car, which is not our basic needs, but is something which has been advertised by the capitalist class and has been ingrained in our mind that it is also something necessary for us. So in that way, the working class, they have become competitive to each other. They are working hard and hard. They are pushing themselves in an exploitative system more deeply so that they can earn more daily wages, and they will have more potential or capability to buy the luxurious products also. So it means that at the same time as the working class, they cannot afford their basic needs. At the same time, the capitalist class is, they are creating trouble by advertising the false needs also. And it is something they are ingraining in the mind of the working class, that they also have to work hard to achieve this such products also, which he called the commodity fetish. Product is a capitalist private property. According to Karl Marx, the product which form as a result of the activity which capitalists perform, it is not the ownership of the working class. It is the capitalist private property. Means that it is all what the it is all in position of the capitalist class. So all what they want to do with that product, they can do that because they control the design of that product, they control the profit, the cost of that product, and also the rules regarding the exchange of that. They know that what to do with that product. This is all the matter of the capitalist class. Working class has been alienated from that product, and in that way he believed that the working class has been alienated from the product of their labor which they perform. The example is that workers in a bakery, they can starve if they don't have money to buy the bread that they make. And this is one of the example which can help us to understand that, for example, if a worker is performing their activity in a bakery, still there is chances under the capitalist system that he or she can they can die of starvation. And the reason behind this, that if they will not have enough money to buy that bread, they will die of starvation. And it will not be something the responsibility claimed by the capitalist class, because it is by design that under the capitalist system all the product has to own by the capitalist. So it is not something that we have to blame the capitalist class, but we have to blame the capitalist system as a whole. We have to blame the whole capitalist system, because Karl Marx was not critical of the capitalist class. He was believing that there is something wrong in the capitalist class which is by nature exploitative. So we have to overthrow this system and must replace it by the communist system. So in that way, this example will help us to understand that how the worker has been alienated from the product of their activity, from the product of their labor under the capitalist system. Then the third type of alienation, which is discussed by the Karl Marx in his Economic and Philosophy manuscript, that is the alienation from their fellow worker. Means that the worker has been alienated from another worker under the capitalist system. Now, what does it mean by this alienation? According to Karl Marx, this capitalist system has created a kind of competitive labor market. Means that there is a competition in the labor market, and in that way every worker is eager to sell their labor as compared in competition with the other labor of the other worker. So in that way, the capitalist class is actually pitting one worker against the other, and in that way they are helping to disintegrate the working class. And they are doing this deliberately because they believe that if the working class once get united, it will overthrow the capitalist class. That's why they are deliberately setting such kind of incentives like bonus and the higher wages for those who work hard. So they are pitting one worker in competition with other under the capitalist, and in that way they are working with each other. They are working under the capitalist system, that they have been alienated from the other workers also. So it provokes a kind of social conflict between the workers, and the economy's arrangement of the relation of the production. It provokes social conflict by pitting worker against the worker in a competition for higher wages and thereby alienating them from one another. So, for example, if the worker on the assembly line, they are close friends, the nature of the technology makes for a great deal of isolation. Means that even if they are close friends, still they have to compete with each other to have more advantages in that industry, in that factory. They still have to compete with each other, and in that way it will lead to a kind of conflict, impersonal conflicts, and sometimes leads to a personal conflict also. So it means that the nature of technology has been made for a great deal of isolation. Means that the technology nature is such that the worker, they must compete with each other, otherwise they will not survive. So here is the one quotation which was taken from the Turkel. Is one of the worker who described their condition in the factory, and he say that you can work next to a guy for months without even knowing his name. One thing, you are too busy to talk, can't hear, you have to holler in his ear. They got these little guys coming around in white shirts, and if they see you run in your mouth, they say this guy needs more work. Means that most of the time we have holler in our ears, so we can't hear to each other, we can't listen to each other. It means everyone is busy in their own world, there is less social cohesion, less social interaction, everyone is too busy. But still, if there are some people who gossip with each other, what will happen, that the other, who are the factory owners, the industrialists who are in white shirts, they will come around, and they see you run in your mouth, they will say that this guy needs more work. So they will try their best to engage you in a work to the extent they can do, so that all the workers, they will have minimum social interaction with each other, and in that way they will have to alienate them from the other fellow workers. And then the alienation from their own human potential. This is the last type of the alienation which was discussed by the Karl Marx. And according to Karl Marx, they have been alienated from their own human potential. Now, what does it mean by the human potential? What is the human potential? That the individuals, they have been reduced to function like machines. The human potential is that individual, they are feeling least human and least ourselves, because the human potential is that they must work in collaboration with each other. All the worker, as we know, human by nature is a social animal, so human must work in cohesion, in social relation, in kind of social group with other workers, so they will work effectively. According to Karl Marx, such type of the collaborative work has also been reduced under the capitalist system, because one worker has been pit against the other under the capitalist, and also that all of their labor are valued primarily for the wealth they generate in the capitalist system. They are not valued for the kind of creativity, or the that how much satisfaction, how much it helped to gain satisfaction. So that's why individual feel least human and least ourselves. And he used a term, this is a German word, the German term which he used, that is the Gattungswesen, which he called the species essence, that they have been alienated from the species essence. As we know that Karl Marx was a German sociologist, a German philosopher. That's why we will usually come across different German terms while studying his philosophy. Okay, so this he called species essence, that the man is not as an isolated entity according to Karl Marx. Every individual has the desire and the tendency to engage in many activities that promote mutual human survival and psychological well-being. But according to Marx, This ability and desire to consciously shape things around us using our imagination and will is what makes us humans. But what happened under the capitalists, that capitalism reduced the labor of the worker to commercial commodity rather than as a constructive socio-economic activity that is part of the collective common effort performed by the betterment of society. Hence, an individual is alienated from one's species essence. It means that and also Karl Marx believed that consciousness is numb under the capitalist system. Means that the capitalist is so, they are better in advertisement. They are ingraining such things in our mind that there is something superior trait in the capitalist class. That's why they are owning all the means of production. They are making our consciousness numb to realize this, that there is nothing superior and inferior traits in the capitalist and the working class, but it is because of the inherent nature of the capitalist system itself that is giving more benefit to the capitalist class and is also compelling the capitalist class to exploit the proletarian class. Otherwise they will themselves join the proletarian class. So in that way it means that the consciousness is numb under the capitalist system, that it is making us believe to it is that they are making us believe that is something pre-decided by the god. It is something because of the inferior trade in a working class, or something because of the superior trade in the capitalist class, that they are ruling everywhere and they are owning all the means of production. This is how the Karl Marx will discuss all these four types of alienation. Okay, now what are the criticism which was drawn this theory of alienation? According to some philosophers, the advanced capitalism leads to a more worker satisfaction. Karl Marx philosophy is valid for the 18th era, where in the era of the Karl Marx, it was from 1818 to 1883. At that time, the working class condition was, of course, it was worse, and that's why it was valid to discuss the capitalism in the way he's discussed it. But since then, the capitalist system has been evolved, and there is now a concept of advanced capitalism, but there is more worker satisfaction. What does it mean by advanced capitalism? That there is now a concept of the welfare state. Under the conditions of the advanced capitalism, there are now greater opportunity for the worker satisfaction, especially for the skilled workers in high technology industries, which require workers to use considerable individual autonomy, creativity, and judgment. Even if the individual feel that they are getting exploited by the capitalist class, now they have the legal protection. Now also they have the opportunity to take part in a labor unions also. So there are also other opportunities rather than to overthrow the capitalist class, but there are also other opportunities. They can use that opportunity to improve their conditions. And also there are now diverse career options. One can pursue different career options as per one's attitude and potential, and thereby achieving satisfaction and purpose in work. And also that there is a concept of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship allows one to pursue one's interest and fulfill one's species essence by creating innovation solutions for different problems. And that's why Karl Marx most of the philosophers believe that what the Karl Marx say about the capitalism, it is not in that way. It has been evolved with time, and now although we are still living under the system of the capitalism, but this capitalism is more advanced, it is more evolved. Now there are more opportunities, and even the minimum wage of the worker, it has been set by the international community. Also the minimum hour of work which we can take from the worker, it is also set by the international community. Means that there is now more legal protection for the worker class under the capitalist system. So it is not in that way as the Marx discussed about centuries ago. So this was all about the Karl Marx concept of alienation. So this was the end of our lecture. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your questions in the comment section below, and like, share and subscribe our channel for latest lectures. Thank you.